So what about the another point of another debate? It's on the dopamine effect,
Oh yeah,
and on the brain, and on the brain structures.
yeah.
And I found one very good study that correlated the use of social media with the size of cerebellum in I think 4 or 5 year old kids. I try to
Yeah,
find it. Long-term impact of digital media on brain development in children.
yeah.
Is it possible to change your brain chemistry and or brain structures if you use it if you are a heavy user of social media?
Um, I mean, it's a hypothesis that's worth raising, right? And what we want is like rigorous pre-registered research to try to investigate this. What we often end up with is low quality research that is oftentimes with small sample sizes and not with rigorous methods. So we kind of went through this, and when you hear these things, it sounds dramatic. So I think we have to remember we went through this with video games, right? And you heard the same claims. Video games are going to change kids' brains. They're going to make them more aggressive. They're going to change these like frontal lobes or other parts of the brain that are involved in impulse control and all this kind of stuff. And now nobody thinks this, right? And what happened is you see this like wave of initial studies that made these big claims. I even remember one saying that like playing video games would cause Alzheimer's disease. I think somewhere in there. So you see these like big scary claims, and then later like more scholars would come along and look at it closely with more rigorous studies and not be able to replicate it. So in other words, sometimes you would see a study would make a big claim, and then another study come along and couldn't find the same effect. And you end up with this whack-a-mole kind of thing, right? Because like the brain is big and there's lots of different parts of it. And again, if you're trying to take one thing, like say screen use, and correlate it with the brain has literally thousands of different like parts, you know what I mean, that are doing different things at different times. You can cut that piece of bread in so many different ways. And if you're just like looking in there randomly, you're going to find something. Like literally you can find people that chew gum and don't chew gum, something's different in their brain at any given time that you look at this, right? And most of the stuff is not meaningful. It's just noise, once again. So a lot of these studies really are just like they're engaged in like a scavenger hunt. They don't know what they're looking for. They don't care. They're just going to try to find any correlation they can and then make it look like, this is a problem throughout social science, by the way. It's not just the brain imaging studies, but then they'll make it look like that was our hypothesis, all along, and then put it up with a big scary headline, and they get a lot of, attention and this kind of stuff. So generally speaking, no, we don't find much evidence that, again, that there's this kind of like replicable, brain change, that's abnormal. And of course, anytime we do anything, our brain's going to, react to it. But in terms of it being like, this is going to like damage the brains of kids, no, we don't see this kind of evidence that would suggest, like Andy Shabilsky's done some work in this area recently, and with some of these like brain scan things, and doesn't find any evidence that like using social media or screens is associated with negative changes in the brain, and that kind of stuff. So again, I think we have to be alert for these kind of scary headlines that we're going to see, and oftentimes the truth is just that there's not that much there. And the problem with these brain imaging studies too is that you see these beautiful pictures and they look so convincing because we like visual information, and there have been longstanding validity problems with those studies. It turns out how you set the machine can make those pictures pop sometimes in ways that are not very reliable. And so to give you an idea, there literally was a study that was done kind of for fun, but it actually did get kind of published and stuff. And what they had done to show just how unreliable these brain studies were is they put a dead salmon into an MRI machine, into an fMRI machine. So they made it look like this dead salmon would respond to emotional pictures. They could show its brain lighting up, like, when you showed it these like evocative images or whatever. And of course, it was all done for fun because of course, it's a dead salmon. Its brain isn't doing anything, right? So it was just showing how these studies can be manipulated very easily by tweaking the machines and the statistics. So I think we always had to be a little bit careful. I'm not saying every study's bad, I mean, there are good brain imaging studies out there, but it's just showing how, careless or unscrupulous researchers can sometimes give us garbage results. Now, again, I'm not trying to pick on brain science. That's true for a lot of social science, as we know as well. It's true for a lot of medical science, right? We just have to be somewhat more critical thinking consumers of a lot of this information. We have to know we're going through a moral panic. We have to know that we're going to see a lot of scary headlines that are making broad claims based on junk science. We've seen this all before. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be maybe a little bit alert to, evidence of possible problems or harms or whatever else. But we also need to have, this like critical thinking awareness that we're going to come across a lot of bullshit. And we have to be ready for that and wary for that.
So you're saying that there is no great rewiring
There is no great rewiring. No.